Texas, 1840. A rancher steps outside at dawn and freezes. On the horizon, riders, dozens of them, moving faster than anything he has ever seen. By the time the nearest garrison hears the news, the raiders will be 100 miles away, driving stolen horses through country no soldier can follow. The Spanish called them the Lords of the Plains. The Apache, themselves feared across the Southwest, simply moved out of their way. For a century and a half, one tribe stopped the expansion of two global empires cold. This is the real story of the Comanche. Here's what Hollywood never tells you: the Comanche were not always masters of the plains. In the early 1600s, they were a small band of Shoshone-speaking foragers scraping a living in the mountains of Wyoming. They dug roots. They ate insects when the hunting failed. Other tribes barely noticed them. Then, around 1680, something happened that would transform this overlooked mountain people into the most dominant military power in western North America. The Spanish, fleeing the Great Pueblo Revolt, left behind thousands of horses. Every plains tribe got horses eventually. But the Comanche did something no one else did: they rebuilt their entire civilization around the animal. While other tribes used horses to hunt and travel, the Comanche bred them, traded them, and mastered them with an obsession that stunned every European who saw it. By 1750, a single Comanche band might own thousands of horses, more than some European armies. One observer wrote that a Comanche was awkward and out of place on foot, but in the saddle he became a different creature entirely: graceful, terrifying, unstoppable. Comanche boys were riding before they could properly walk. At 4 or 5 years old, a boy received his own pony, and his real education began. By 12, he could hang off the side of a galloping horse using only a heel hooked over its back, shielding his entire body behind the animal while shooting arrows under its neck. At full gallop. Colonel Richard Dodge of the U.S. Army, no friend of the tribe, admitted the Comanche were the finest light cavalry in the world. Better than the Cossacks. Better than anything Europe had produced. By the late 1700s, the Comanche controlled an empire the size of France, 240,000 square miles, that historians now call the Comancheria. It stretched from Kansas deep into Texas, from New Mexico to Oklahoma. And this was not just raiding territory. It was an economy. The Comanche ran a vast trading network dealing in horses, buffalo hides, and captives, setting prices and dictating terms to Spanish governors. Spain, the empire that had crushed the Aztec and the Inca, built a line of forts on the edge of Comanche country and then quietly stopped expanding north. Permanently. Comanche warfare was built on one weapon deadlier than any rifle: speed. A war party could cover 70 miles in a single night, strike a settlement at dawn, and vanish before any response was possible. They attacked under the full moon, riding through darkness no European cavalry dared travel. Texans learned to dread what they called the Comanche moon. And the terror was deliberate. The Comanche understood psychological warfare centuries before the term existed. A raid was not just about horses and captives. It was a message: this land is ours. Now for the fact that shocks everyone. For 200 years, the bow was simply a better weapon than the gun. A musket took 30 seconds to reload, an eternity, standing exposed on an open plain. In those same 30 seconds, a Comanche warrior fired 20 arrows, each one capable of driving completely through a buffalo at 50 yards. From horseback. While moving at 30 miles an hour. Early Texas Rangers carried single-shot pistols and died. It took the invention of the Colt revolver, a gun designed specifically to fight the Comanche, to even the odds. Away from the battlefield, everything in Comanche life came from one animal: the buffalo. The meat fed them. A single hunter could bring down enough in one hunt to feed his family for months. The hide became teepee covers, winter robes, shields, and saddles. Sinew became bowstrings and thread. Horns became spoons and cups. Bones became tools and knife handles. Even the stomach became a water bag. Nothing was wasted, because on the open plains, waste meant death. The Comanche did not just hunt the buffalo. Their entire world was built from it. And here is what the movies never show: the camp itself was a marvel of engineering, run entirely by women. A Comanche woman could take down a full-size teepee in 15 minutes, pack it onto a horse-drawn travois, move 20 miles, and have it standing again by nightfall warm, weatherproof, with a fire burning inside. An entire village of hundreds could vanish in under an hour. U.S. Army officers chasing the Comanche wrote in frustration that pursuing them was like chasing smoke. The mobility that made Comanche war parties untouchable started with the women who could move a whole city before noon. In 1836, Comanche raiders attacked Fort Parker, Texas, and carried off a 9-year-old settler girl named Cynthia Ann Parker. What happened next reveals something the history books long ignored. She was not enslaved, she was adopted, raised as a full Comanche, and in time married a chief, Pete Nakona, by all accounts a marriage of genuine affection. When Texas Rangers recaptured her 24 years later, she was a Comanche woman who no longer remembered English. She spent the rest of her life trying to escape back to the plains, back to the only people she considered her own. Cynthia Ann's son would become the greatest Comanche of them all. Quanah Parker, half-settler by blood, entirely Comanche by heart, became the last great war chief, leading the final fight for the plains. He was never captured and never defeated in battle. But in 1875, with the buffalo gone and his people starving, Quanah made a decision that took more courage than any raid. He led his band to the reservation. And then he did the unthinkable, he mastered the settler's world too, becoming a wealthy rancher who dined with President Theodore Roosevelt. So what finally broke the empire that armies could not? Not soldiers, hunters. Between 1870 and 1880, commercial hide hunters armed with long-range rifles slaughtered the buffalo herds at industrial scale, 30 million animals reduced to a few hundred. Army generals openly encouraged it, understanding that every dead buffalo starved the tribes that armies had failed to defeat. Add wave after wave of smallpox and cholera, which killed more Comanche than every battle combined, and the mathematics became merciless. The lords of the plains were not conquered. Their world was taken out from under them. Strip away the myths, and the real story is more astonishing than any Western. A tribe that numbered perhaps 40,000 at its peak held a territory the size of France against Spain, Mexico, Texas, and the United States for 150 years. They forced the redesign of American firearms. They dictated the borders of empires. And they did it not through numbers, but through total mastery of horse, land, and war. Today the Comanche Nation is still here, over 17,000 strong, in Lawton, Oklahoma. The empire fell. The people endured. The Comanche story is just one chapter. The Apache endured the harshest warrior training on the continent. The Lakota destroyed Custer at Little Bighorn. The Iroquois built a democracy older than the United States itself. Every one of these stories has been buried under a century of Hollywood myth, and on this channel, we dig up the truth, one story at a time. If you want to know how the First Nations really lived, fought, and survived, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the real history of this land is far stranger than the legend.